Good morning to you. Welcome to my thought for the day. We have reached another parable that Jesus taught in Luke chapter 20, and we find as he approaches the end of his journey, his parables of warning to the Jewish people become more obvious, become clearer. Indeed, it is impossible to miss the message of this parable that he tells. We've seen already the warning in the parable of the pounds to those who followed him, that following him required effort and required commitment, and those who did things half-heartedly, were servants but didn't serve, would be punished. And here we have in this parable of the wicked tenants, is all about a landowner who owned and planted a vineyard and let it out to tenants, and he went to another country for a long while, and he sent servants to bring some of the fruit to him from the vineyard, and they are beaten and killed and thrown out. And he sends his son, and they throw him out of the vineyard and kill him. Jesus knew what was coming. He knew that the people who cared for the vineyard that belonged to God were going to throw him out. He makes it quite, this is so plain. He makes it quite plain that he is the Son. He is the one, the promised one who was to come. And he is rejected by the owners of the vineyard, by the tenants of the vineyard. And it's so stark because it goes on to say, what will the master, the owner of the vineyard, do when he comes? He will destroy those tenants and give the vineyard to others. And this is talking about the Gentiles, those of us who have come in afterwards. And it whenever I read about the vineyards, and this links with the chapter in chapter 15 of John, where Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. My Father is the vine tender. And also that great prophecy, great bit of poetic prophecy in Isaiah 5, verses 1 to 7, which clearly describes God planting a vineyard and tending it and working on it and expecting good fruit to come from it, and no good fruit comes from it. And verse 7 of Isaiah 5 says, For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant planting. And he looked for justice, but behold bloodshed, and for righteousness, but behold a cry. And this parable, this likening of God's own people, the Jews, the Jewish people, as a beautiful vineyard planted. It's a parable, and it shows God's commitment to his people, that he planted them. He planted them in a beautiful land flowing with milk and honey. And at every turn, they disregarded the owner of the vineyard. And here they were doing it again in this parable. And the people who heard him say this realized what he was saying. They realized that they were saying that they knew the story of the vineyard from Isaiah. Everybody would have known it. It was a well-known passage of their scriptures that the people were God's vineyard. And here Jesus is using that picture and saying, yes, but look what the vineyard has come to. The vineyard has come and I think the people that were sent from the master to get the fruit were the prophets, the Old Testament prophets. So many of them rejected by their own people and turned on and not listened to. And when the people heard this, they said, God forbid. But he looked at them and said, what then is this that was written? The very stone which the builders rejected has become the head of the corner. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to pieces, but when it falls on anyone, it will crush him. He knew that his coming would signal the end of an era, would herald in the time of the Gentiles. My Bible has a footnote. It says, this parable apparently was directed against the Jews as a nation because of their rejection of Christ as their Messiah. He warned them of the dire consequences their decision, as it related both to judgment upon their nation and to the inclusion of the Gentiles who would be offered the kingdom they had rejected. It's a sad thing. But I think even at this point, if they'd had ears to hear, if they'd opened their mind to it, things would have been different. You know, there's always opportunity for repentance. And here it is, starkly here, Jesus himself telling the people who were going to be, did he know as he looked at them that some of the very people he was talking to would be calling for him to be crucified in a very short time? I don't know. I don't know how Jesus, with all his knowledge of what was going to happen to him, lived through these days so placidly and so beautifully. He knew he was going to suffer. He knew coming into Jerusalem on the donkey was the beginning of the end. He knew the time was short, and he did his utmost to warn people. And it does go on straight away to this. The scribes and the chief priests tried to lay hands on him at that very hour. But they feared the people, for they perceived he told this parable against them. It was quite clear. Nobody was mistaken about what the meaning of that parable was. Everyone understood it, particularly the leaders of the people. And instead of stirring them to repentance and change, it provoked in them a desire to destroy Jesus completely. There's always a choice. There we are. That's my thought for the day. I'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you. Have a great day.